SoCal's country station, 95.1 KFRG. I'm Pepper. This is Spirit of the IE. As Independence Day travel ramps up, so do scam attempts targeting drivers and travelers. AAA projects that over 45 million drivers will be hitting the road for the July 4th holiday, and fraudsters are flooding phones with Robotexts impersonating DMVs and toll agencies. These messages falsely warn of license suspension or unpaid tolls to trick drivers into clicking malicious links. This wave of driver-related fraud has already triggered alerts from state attorneys general and toll agencies across the country. John Haraburda, a robocall and robotext expert at Transaction Network Services, is on the line to tell us how we can help protect ourselves. Thank you for joining me.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
John, why is this a prime time for scammers?
Well, I tell you, with a busy driving season in the summertime, it is a hot trigger point. What we see through the year are activities such as tax day or insurance open season as a catalyst for having these different spam campaigns trigger, with a common issue of trying to find information and to basically do social engineering on the consumer to help get information and defraud them.
What kinds of scam messages are drivers getting right now?
Well, we've seen an interesting mixture. So it's been some innocuous of saying that, hey, we're the toll authority, right? We're Fast Track there in California trying to find it, or we're the Port Authority in New York following up on a bad toll. We've also seen text messages coming through where it can be extremely disturbing. Some of the messages we've seen has been, you have three options. You could, number one, respond with a 1 and your license will be suspended. Number 2, you can get this payment bar to make a payment, right? Or number 3, we can come arrest you, right? And literally in some very, very hard-nosed push from the fraudsters trying to get a trigger and get a reaction from the consumer.
Now, I've received some of those messages, and they can be pretty scary. How can someone tell the difference between a real message from a toll agency or DMV and a scam?
Well, I think the easiest thing is generally the toll agencies will communicate to you via post mail. So you'd have a statement coming to you from them with pictures of your car, with your license plate that you missed the toll and things like this. The other thing is just the general tone. If you don't like the tone of the call, if the text is causing you disturbance, then ignore it, hang up. But what you have the option of doing is contacting your toll authority directly. You know, you can go into your Fast Track, or we have here at Easy Pass to look at this on the East Coast, but you have an ability of logging into your account and all those infractions would be defined in there. So there's other ways of connecting in to validate whether there is an issue or not. Because one of the problems, right, is that you have people that will be driving from, San Diego to LA, and they may actually think they may have bypassed a toll somehow, right? And it may be a legitimate notification. So they need to just, verify it and check it out and not just fall for the trigger and the quick reaction by a text message or a phone call.
What's the difference between robocalls and robotexts, and how do scammers use each one?
Yeah, they're very interesting. So they're a bit related. So think of the robo component as an automated communication trigger. So there are computers generating phone calls. There's computers generating text messages that go out to the ecosystem that get delivered. Now, one of the interesting things that is happening with this campaign especially has been what we call intermodal, where you may get a text and then you'll get a phone call also trying to communicate to you that you've missed this toll and it's super important for you to make a payment, et cetera. So it's very important for the consumer to be aware, to have their spidey senses turned on to enable them to find and identify those. And again, if they're uncomfortable, hang up the phone call or ignore the text, and then check it in directly to make sure your account is up to date and the like.
Which agencies are being impersonated most often in these scams?
Well, a lot of times it's the actual toll provider themselves, right? So it'll be Fast Track, and I noticed on their website, there's even a prompt notification today looking at, hey, be aware of these campaigns and don't fall for them. We've also seen ones where some jurisdictions across the U.S. have specific legal entities that are the collectors of the fines and of the missed tolls. And so you'll have people trying to represent them as that legitimate party. So it's a bit of a mix, but it's going to be generally someone you would think would be the party calling you. It might be Orange County. It might be a certain city jurisdiction that might present themselves as the party who actually should be getting paid for those tolls.
I'm speaking with John Haraburda, a robocall and robotext expert at Transaction Network Services. Are there any particular regions or states where these scams are especially bad right now?
Well, yes. I mean, California, we've seen quite a substantial bit of traffic. We've seen the Los Angeles, San Francisco, and San Diego corridors all triggering on those. We've also seen them in the Midwest, in Canada, and especially here on the East Coast. Again, we have got a similar toll organization that manages the tolls across the states from Virginia up to Maine. And you see huge campaigns in the New York City metro area. One of the scenarios they had there, if you recall, there was congestion tolls that was put in place by the city. And there was a lot of confusion on whether those tolls were being applied or not applied. Did you pay them? Did you not pay them? Was your transponder working or not? And all that confusion triggered a big spurt of this spam and fraudulent activity.
Does TNS see any patterns in how scam activity ramps up around holidays like the 4th of July or Labor Day?
Oh, certainly they do, right? Because they take advantage, again, of the activity. So I don't even know if you have estimates for traveling, but I know there's going to be millions of people on the road over the holiday weekend here, and you'll be at risk of seeing that because of the increased activity. And so you need to have the ability of knowing that there's a lot of action going. You know, it's not unlike February 14th and tax issues coming up. There's a catalyst for these things in the holiday season, Memorial Day, and future Labor Day, right, would be high traffic patterns where we would see this activity coming through. And again, you know, just to have the customer watch it. Some of the other patterns we've seen that's been interesting is the range of where the numbers are calling from. We've seen numbers from Canada calling into California. We've seen numbers from the Midwest calling into California, claiming to be the toll agency. We've even seen numbers from other countries calling in, attempting to represent them as the country and sending text messages. So all these things would be giveaways to be able to identify that and help, protect the consumer and leverage the services that your mobile service provider is providing, right? By providing you spam identification, notifications, and warning for both your text and your voice calls. And leverage all those tools you have in place to help to protect the consumer over this busy summer.
If someone gets a suspicious text or robocall, is it safe to reply or even click a link to check?
You certainly should not. So there's a couple of different things that happen. One is the link may actually resolve or go to a web page that looks just like the Fast Track website. But the problem is it's going to be actually a clone site that's actually going to be there to collect your data, your logon information, your credit card payment, and do all that maliciously by a web page that looks almost the exact same way. The other issue you have is there's actually malware that can be loaded onto your mobile device by clicking a link. And then being able to load this device, which then allows other spying and information in your phone itself, causes other issues and concerns. So it'd be highly recommended to not click any link. And again, if you get these messages and you think you may have actually incurred a problem, log on directly to the site. Call the number directly yourself that you know is your Fast Track number, and use that to then validate your account. Not rely on anything on the text, or certainly don't respond to someone calling you saying you may pay now or your license is going to be suspended. That's a red flag to be aware of, and just cease the call immediately.
Are there any tools or apps that drivers can use to block scam calls or texts more effectively?
Yeah, but most of the mobile service providers have applications. TNS runs this for these types of services for over 150 service providers in the U.S. and Canada. And this is a service that we offer through the service provider themselves, who offer this to help their consumers and help protect them from both text spams and text phone calls. And so in these cases, these calls can be identified and labeled differently to identify them as malicious and therefore be warning and allow them to either go to voicemail, or some service providers actually allow those calls to be directly terminated and blocked and never go to the consumer based upon the service provider configuration or preferences by the subscriber or consumer themselves.
What steps can people take right now before they leave for a road trip to protect themselves from these kinds of fraud?
Well, one thing would be, I know I've had this problem before, maybe log on to those accounts to make sure your credit card is updated. A lot of the tolls, right, will have an automatic replenishment mechanism. So make sure all your payment and contact information is updated appropriately in these sites. Number two, just be aware if you're traveling down a certain highway in California that doesn't have tolls and someone calls you to say you missed a toll, okay, that's something that should be a red flag for you. So set up a couple different protections there around your identity and your information to protect yourself.
With AI and spoofing tech getting more advanced, are scams becoming harder to detect? Like, what do you think is next in this space?
Well, some of the interesting ones, especially with AI, is more targeted kind of spam, where they'll have information saying, well, Pepper, your account number is X121516, and your account is past balance because you were driving down this highway. And they'll have information that would sound and look and feel real that you'd have to be able to discern. So, part of what's being done with some of the tech spam identifications is what they call natural language learning and intuition of the text used in the text message, right? To understand whether that's malicious or not, or AI generated. The same conditions work within voice calls, right? To understand if the voice that's talking to you, is it computer generated, which may or may not be good or bad, right? But what it's using and what it's saying, and is the information malicious, and is it a trustworthy communication? So those are some of the things that are actually deployed already and being expanded, again, in partnership with the service providers that provide you your mobile device and interconnection services.
Speaking with John Haraburda, a robocall and robotext expert at Transaction Network Services, what's one thing you wish every driver knew before heading out for the holiday weekend?
Well, one would be drive safely. Number two would be to be aware not only of driving surroundings, but of also trying to have people contact you and warn you about these spams. It is a malicious activity. It is a way of contacting you, grabbing your personal information, enabling identity fraud, and a lot of other very dangerous and malicious activity. So the more proactive and aware the consumer is, the better it'll be for them, and let them enjoy the holiday weekends and the summer.
And anything else you think we should know? Where can we go to learn more?
Well, again, most of your service providers have websites that talk about the services they offer. TNS has a website that has information on the recent toll fraud that's been out there. We have a Spam of the Month report that's there. You also have as you mentioned earlier, the state's attorney generals have been getting together to identify and work with the FCC and the Federal Trade Commission to understand who these malicious parties are that generate this traffic, give them fines, and identify how to shut their traffic down and to cease their activity. So there's a concerted effort within the industry and with public services working for the consumer to help protect them. But it all falls back on the consumer being aware, notifying it, or noticing things, and reporting to the authorities when it's appropriate.
Well, thank you so much for talking with us today, and thank you for helping to keep us safe. Happy 4th of July.
Likewise. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.